Welcome back. This is Tampa Home Talk, and I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. And this is our first time launching Tampa Home Talk in 6 months. It has been a long 6 months, let me tell you. So we've made some changes in the last 6 months. I'm going to talk about why we had our little break and what you can expect from us going forward and what all has changed since we were in the studio in 2024. So I think we're live streaming. Yeah, maybe we're trying to get some of the bugs still worked out. Seems like it. We are. All right. If you can see us live, make sure you leave some comments, ask some questions, and go from there. So some of you that follow me on social media or I'm friended with, you probably already know the story as to why we had such a long break from Tampa Home Talk, but I'm going to share. I'm going to come from this place, and this show will go to our podcast like it always does after we air. And in November of last year, in 2024, the day before my 50th birthday, my husband was basically unresponsive on the couch at home. I had to call the paramedics or EMTs to come get him. They tried to do CPR. They took him to the hospital. And long story short, he was admitted to the hospital. He had been having seizures. He was undergoing some regular health issues that we were dealing with, but he was non-responsive. And so when he went to the hospital, he had been having seizures. He had 5 more seizures at the hospital with my kids when he was there. And the next day, which was my 50th birthday, he went on hospice and subsequently passed away the next day. So that was my 50th birthday. My husband of, 31 years we were together, 27 years of those we were married, passed away. And so it was it was quite an experience and a journey for myself, my family, my kids. And I'm so grateful that I was able to have them there with me, definitely in that first week and even after that, because it was hard. It was very, very hard. And so to say that my life stopped suddenly would be an understatement. Everything stopped, including Tampa Home Talk. And so that's why we've had a break from the show. That's why you haven't seen me live. And we're just now resuming. So to catch you up on the last 6 months on some of the things we did, some of you are aware we aired on a Beasley Media show. It was Money Talk 1010 for years and later became Podcast Radio US. And we aired the show live every single week, live radio with 4 segments. And then our show would go to a podcast. And so those of you that listen on the podcast or later would basically hear the version of the live show. And so we decided to make some changes to the studio and to Tampa Home Talk. And we thought, what about instead of making radio first and podcast the afterthought, what if we flip that around and we make the podcast and the video first and radio second? So maybe even we pre-record the show and then drop it at the station locally whenever we're done. Well, we may still renegotiate a contract with Beasley, but we may move to another station. We don't know. So here nor there, the goal is to grow our audience on social media and on our podcast. So if you can share this show, we'd appreciate it. We're obviously rebuilding our guest up for the next 6 weeks, like we always had on Tampa Home Talk. And then we are going to grow the show from there, and we'll see where that goes. So in this time frame that I was off, I went on an adventure to revamp the studio, revamp our office where we do the show, because we always aired remotely from our studio and we plugged into the station. Still have the equipment and everything to do that, but we bought some different equipment that's more podcast friendly. If you're watching on social media, you may notice the chairs are different. Everything is a little different. And we'll give you guys a little behind the scenes tour here in a little bit. But we put some money back into our studio where we air the show here. And so we're excited to do that. So what I have in store for you today was just to share the backstory on why we were out. I gave you that. I want to introduce another show that I've started doing. I'll do that in the latter part of this show. And that one will drop, I think, this week as well. And then I'm going to share the numbers and the data, which is what you guys have always looked forward to seeing and getting from me while I've been out. Now, when I took a break and I stopped doing radio, I also took almost 3 months off. So I did not work for 3 months after my husband passed away. And I'm very thankful to have that time. And I came back to work probably in January, lightly in January of this year, and probably full-time in February. So I've been back to work on the real estate stuff. I've been in it. I look at the numbers every single week still. And so we were airing on Friday. I think we're going to change that to Tuesday. I think it may be just a better day for us. And so every week we would share the numbers and how those changed week over week, month over month, year after year. And so what I did was I pulled the data from Florida Realtors from November of 2024. I'm going to do a run through on those. And then what I'm going to do is share with you the April numbers, because that's the latest from Florida Realtors. And of course, I've got the 4-week trends. And I'll talk to you about some of the things that we've seen here in the day-to-day market on real estate and some of the trends and the changes that I've seen. And so we'll talk about that stuff here on this particular show. But before we do, let's dive into a recap. So in November of 2024, which again, I might have aired one show in November, maybe, I think, maybe not. I can't remember. It might have been the end of October, but that was the last time we aired a show. And so in November of last year, the absorption rate, which we talk about that a lot, it was a 3.6 month supply of homes. And so what's the absorption rate? Well, the absorption rate is, simply speaking, supply and demand. So the number of homes on the market compared to the number of buyers in the market. If no more new homes came on the market, how long would it take all those homes to sell? And the answer is a 3.6 month supply of homes. And that was in November of 2024. And, the closed sales, there's a lot of data in this. I'm going to have to get some dang readers here for the studio so I can read this stuff a little better. But I'll go through some of the highlight in the data fast. And let me do a comparative analysis here. So when I look at April 2025, we are at a 4.2 month supply of homes, and we're seeing that regularly changing. So I talk about this in the day-to-day, and it's what I've noticed from last year to this year is real estate, as always, is very hyper-local. And with that being said, when I go in and I pull comps and I look at data from one neighborhood to the next, I'll see that this absorption rate is a little bit different in one neighborhood to the next. So for example, when I go in and I pull comparable home sales to price a home and get an idea what that home could sell for, how long it would take to sell, how long the homeowner would expect to be on the market, some neighborhoods I go in and I pull, there will be a ton of active homes for sale. Very few, maybe 1 or 2 pending. There's been cases where I pulled comps and there's 0 pending. There's a ton of active and there's a handful of sold. And that's pretty normal for a lot of the neighborhoods that I pull in. And it'll be different from one neighborhood to the next. Some have very few or some active where there was maybe none before. And there'll be some pending. And then you'll see some that are sold. And it's a pretty mixed bag from one neighborhood to the next. And so this data that we pull, this is for single family homes. And the 4.2 month supply of homes is pretty accurate. This is for a 4-county area. So this is Hillsborough County, Pasco County, Pinellas County, and Hernando County, single family homes. And that's quickly trending upward, right, to a larger supply of homes. And a balanced market is a 6 to 12 month supply of homes. And the interesting thing is we are not even in a balanced market yet for single family homes in these 4 counties. We're on our way, but we're not there yet. And so the closed home sales, April from last year, we're down about 2%. So in April, there was 3,669 single-family homes that sold in those 4 counties. And as I pull some of this additional data, the number of cash sales, this one it's up a little in April of last year. It's up 3.7%. And that's an interesting trend because I really thought that would be a little bit lower, but it's not. So cash sales are definitely up a little over last year, which is surprising. The cash sales as a percentage of closed sales. So 6%, it's up 6% from last year. So the percentage of closed homes that paid in cash, April of 2026, 26.4% of the sales that occurred in April were cash. That's a pretty big number. If you ask me, I think that's really big. And I think we would see some significant changes from November of last year. So just to point out some facts, I mean, November of last year was an election year. That significantly impacts a lot of the things that we see. But surprisingly, November of last year, 27.9% of the home sales in the market were cash. And that tells you that, the market's still moving. But in my opinion, that's a high number of cash. I think, a lot of cash buyers are waiting for deals. They're looking for the deals. If they can't get the deals, they will wait or they will buy something different. And that's it's pretty accurate. They're going to move on the motivated home sellers in a shifting market. The number of the median home sale price. Let's talk about that. So the median compared to the average sale price. So the median sale price in April of this year was right at $400,000. So we're down a little over April of last year. That was 4.3% down. Not much. If you ask me, that's a pretty consistent number. So 400,000 and then go back to November for the median, that was at 406. So not really huge changes, just a little. That's that normal real estate cycle that we see kind of shake out. Now, the average sale price, factoring in all, the average of all of them, right? Not the median, not the stuff in the middle. The average sale price is right around $500,000. So it was $500,406 in April of this year. November, it was $516,528. Again, that's right in the middle, including your, $1 million homes and all that stuff. The median's probably a more accurate depiction of, kind of what that middle ground looks like for sales here in the Tampa market. All right, single family home sales, the dollar value. So 1.8 million was the dollar value that moved. That's down 8.7% over last year. And this is an interesting one, too. So the median percentage of its original list price received. This is a really, really good data if you are a home seller. This is important because this gives you an idea, especially, and if you don't price it correctly, all bets are off. This number is significantly less. But overall, the median we are seeing is 96.5% of what people list the home for is what they actually get. So if I had to do some quick math here, which I'm going to try to do with my calculator all moved around here on a live show, let's use that $400,000 median price, and we'll subtract from that 96.5%, and that's $14,000. So if you listed your home for $400,000, you could expect for it to close around $386, generically speaking, right? So just be mindful of that. So if you are on the market and you're listed for whatever price, I would take 96.5% off of that list price. And if your first offer is anywhere near that number, it's probably not a low offer because your first offer is typically speaking your best offer. So even if you're represented from someone else and you're not represented from somebody like me, keep that in mind. This could be an important piece of data that helps you from getting a lower offer the second time around. So take that offer. It may be your best offer, or be prepared to rent your home. We're seeing some people that are actually choosing to do that. Some home sellers have very low interest rates, and it makes sense to just sit on their home and rent it for a little while. Now, single family home. So median time to contract. How long is it taking home sellers to get a contract, right? On average or on median. And that number is saying right around 28 days. And that's, of course, 55.6% higher than last year, of course. That was a significantly different market. But 28 days is roughly how long it's taking home sellers to get a contract on their home. And then by the time they go to closing, that's 71 days. So from the time you list the property until the time you actually get to the finish line, close on your home, and get the cash in your bank account, 71 days. That's roughly what that means. New pending sales. So let's chat about that and the number of new listings. So May or April rather of this year, there's been 3,877. That number is down almost 2%, 1.9% for the number of pending home sales. They're still moving, but it's down a little bit over last year. And the number of new listings, this is up over 10%. So the number of new listings that came on the market in April, 5,587. Why this is important? This continues to show that we are moving into a balanced market. So for example, if you have 5,587 new single family homes that are coming on the market, yet you only have 3,877 that are going pending, and that's not even your sold. That number is actually always lower. That tells you that the inventory is going up, which means our absorption rate is going to continue to go up as well because more homes are coming on the market than are pending and selling. Let's look at the closed sale by sales price, okay? This shows how many closed in particular categories, and we've talked about this a little bit before. So under 50,000, there were 3 home sales in 4 counties that were under 50,000, if you can believe that. Surprising, even we have anything in there. Under that 99.9 between 50, there was 12. We had 45 home sales between 100,000 and 149,999. We had 100 sales that closed between 150,000 and 199,999. And then your inventory starts to bulk up a little bit more, and that's 200,000 to 249,999. There was 237 home sales that occurred in that price range, and from 250 to 299,999, there was 358 home sales. So you can see as it's starting to decline. Now here's our median data. In these next set of information, this tells you where all the activity is happening. This is where most of the sales are. So from 300,000 to 399,999, that's a smidge. Remember, right under that median or average price, median price rather, 1,070 home sales occurred in that price that were between 300 and 399,999. And then there was 1,090 that occurred between 400,000 and 599,999. Now, in my opinion, Florida realtors should really break this data down a little bit more because there is a huge stretch between a $400,000 buyer and a buyer that's purchasing at $599,999. That there is way too many price brackets in that range, if you ask me. And I think Florida realtors should split that up and break those down a little bit more in all of those median home prices and lump those other things together, because honestly, under 100,000 is one and the same. And really, quite frankly, probably under 149 is one and the same, and almost under 200,000. That's kind of all the same bracket. And I see the other thing too, they've got 600,000 to 999 lumped together. And from what I see in the data, there's definitely breakdowns in those, and kind of that $750,000. That's a whole different bracket of buyer, if you ask me. So 500,000 to 750, and then that 750 to $1 million is a big difference. And so we'd have to dive into this data a little bit more to figure out where that occurred. But nevertheless, in that price range from 600,000 to 999, so just under $1 million, there was 532 home sales that occurred. And then $1 million and up, only 222. So that luxury market also is significantly changing. And surprisingly, the days on market are around the same. So 29 days, and even in that upper price point, which is surprising. And then those where we have those median home prices, which is 300 to 599, those are still right in the 37, 32 days for those particular home prices. New listings by initial sales price. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this because I feel like we kind of already covered this. Inventory by current listing. This is probably a good one to talk about. So this is how much inventory is in that price range that's being listed. So you have a lot coming into that 300,000 to 399. So 3,318 are coming in the market in that price range, and then 400 to 599, 4,360. So you got a lot that are coming in the market in those particular median price ranges. Now, distressed. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but we are seeing more than we did in the prior markets. And so this is an interesting thing because we'll see this start to come back up a little bit more. Foreclosures in April of this year, we only had 18 compared to 23 in April of 2024, which is surprising. I would have guessed that number to be higher. And those are definitely smaller home prices. So last year they were $275,000 compared to the median price this year, which was $244,000. Short sales, we're seeing a couple of those in the market. So last year in April, we had 3 compared to the 8 that we had on the market. And then again, those prices also, they were $430,000. Now we're $352,000 and change. So we're seeing that also move up, and we'll see those continue to climb because, you know, people bought with cash they had. We're still seeing inflationary things that are impacting people's ability to pay their mortgage. And we'll see those things change. We just will. Now, townhomes and condos. You probably remember me talking about this, how this is a different animal. And quite frankly, I don't think they should be lumping townhomes and condos together. Those are very, very different markets. However, when we look at this, just to give you an idea, and again, this is the 4 counties in April of last year, there are 6.8 months supply of homes compared to last year in April was a 4.8 month supply of homes. Everything about these is a little bit different. So the number of closed sales is only 1,133 for April. You had 544 of those that paid in cash. Your median sales price on those is $283,500. So that's a significant difference over your single family homes. Dollar volume, 415.5 million. And then percentage of original price. So from the price they listed it compared to what they got, this number is also lower compared to single family, 94.8%. It's taking them 40 days on average to get a contract on their place and 78 days to get to the finish line. Pending coming in at 1,111 for April. The number of new listings also sharply up, 1,960. And then the pending inventory, 1,435. Current active inventory, 7,474. That is up 23.6% over last year. So that's a significant amount from last year. And closed sales in cash. This is for townhomes and condos. The number of year to date has only been 1,987. April had 544. Cash sales as a percentage, 48% of these paid in cash. Now, if you guys remember Senate Bill 4D, we talked about that and all the changes that were occurring in the condo market, how they had to have their milestone inspection and their reserve studies done, and all that had to happen in December of last year. All this stuff is coming into play right now. We're seeing people buy dated single-family homes over condos or townhomes. And 48% of these guys paid in cash. I would say if we had to compare that condo versus townhome, and I'd have to pull this in a very manual, granular way in order to get this information, I bet a lot of those condo sales were cash, probably over 48%. Because remember, Florida realtors, they lump condos and townhomes together. Don't think they should, but they do, and that's how they've been tracking this. Median sale price for condos and townhomes in April coming in at $283,500. Average sales price $386,704. Again, quite different from this time a year ago for sure. Let's go into median price as original sales price, 94.8. I think we already chatted about that. Median time to contract, 40 days, 78 days to actually get to the finish line. And the number, I think I went over all this data. This is kind of repetitive because I went over the snapshot version of this. Yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty much all I want to cover. There's some more data on the distress stuff, but I think in a nutshell, that gives you an idea how we compare over April of last year and also over November, since I did my side-by-side comparison. Now, as always, real estate is hyper-local. So I can pull this data in your particular neighborhood, and I can promise you it is going to look significantly different from the averages. So you can't go off the averages, but gives you an idea what to expect in the Tampa market. So if you're someone looking to relocate here to the market, it's really important that you have a market expert like me that can actually help lead you and guide you accordingly so that you're not overbuying or overpaying in this particular market. And more importantly, if you're a home seller looking to sell a property in the Tampa market, maybe you've even listed the property with someone else and you couldn't quite get the activity or the showing or the traffic, or you don't understand why it didn't sell. This is all important information that I can help you with because I'm a market expert here in the Tampa Bay market. You can call or text us on our off-air number, which is 813-377-2775 if you want to get some information. Maybe your home has been on the market and you're not sure why it hasn't sold. I can help you figure that one out. Just call or text us and we'll schedule a personal appointment with me to come check out your home and tell you why it didn't sell. 813-377-2775. I promise you I can sell any home. This is Tampa Home Talk, and this is our first show back from the break. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. You listen to my voice like nonstop here for a good 30 minutes. We're going to have some guests on, which will air in our shows coming up in the current weeks. Now, our next guest for next week, I want to give you a little teaser. You won't want to miss this. This is how the insurance market is changing in 2025. Ooh la la, there are some changes after those storms, as you might expect, and some good surprises. So make sure you tune in next week for that show with our guest, Laura, and she's going to go over those insurance changes for 2025. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell. This is Tampa Home Talk. Love where you live, or we'll fix it. Welcome home.